From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network, coming to you live here on this Thursday. It is the 25th day of May 2017, right at the start of the 6 o'clock hour. As we get set to go today, finals are done and over with, so hopefully it'll be an everyday Monday through Friday now. We got a lot to get to today. You have Game 6 between the Celtics and the Cavaliers tonight, which is where we'll begin. The NFL rule changes from earlier this week. The Mets going tonight with a little bit of a pitching change. DeGrom was scheduled to pitch tonight. He will not. And the Yankees have been postponed until September 25th to make up the game today that has been rained out. Um, Tonight's game between the Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics. Now, this game you would assume that that the Cavaliers would have this game pretty well in hand. It's going to be on TNT in about 2.5 hours from right now. But right now, what you have a situation to where the Cavaliers may look to give this game away. And the reason why you would say, well, give it away is because, well, no, you know they're going to win the series. They're a heck of a lot better than Boston is. Um, that and the Cavaliers right now are dealing with two injuries. You're dealing with injuries to Kevin Love. You're dealing with his back injury. That, and I believe it was during the last game, Kyrie Irving rolled his ankle pretty good. So you're dealing with those injuries. Now the question is for Cleveland, do you sit those guys out in Boston, give the Celtics a feel-good moment in at home? You know they're not going to win the series. So do you give away a game to make sure Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love are ready to go for the NBA Finals, or do you just try to end it tonight and just end the season as quickly as possible? Um, so you have that. You're looking at that tonight. I can almost guarantee you they're going to play. I have not heard anything about them possibly not playing tonight. But they are injured. Speaking of Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, they are injured. They are dealing with issues. For Kyrie, it's his ankle. For Love, it's his back. And going through to the West now, Tuesday studying for finals. Didn't get to do the show, but we pretty much did it on Monday, where I said I would come on and say essentially that Spurs hung on, they fought valiantly, but in the end they lost by double digits because they let the game get away from them in the end. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. Everyone is romancing this game because it could be the last time Manu Ginobili plays in the NBA, that is a big, which is a properly big deal. Ginobili, who's going to be 40 this upcoming season, has been a bench player for the last 3 or 4 years, just a role player, the kind of guy who, hey, Pop, what do you want me to do? And I'll do it, which is exactly the kind of player you want on your team. But there always comes a time where the end comes, and Tuesday night apparently is rumored to be the end for Manu Ginobili. And also, you would have to assume the end of the Spurs run. And the Spurs have been so good for so long. You rarely ever hear Tony Parker's name anymore. Kawhi Leonard, you see what happens to San Antonio when Kawhi Leonard's not on the floor. That and LaMarcus Aldridge, who was such a big free agency acquisition for San Antonio, expected to take Tim Duncan's place, which will never happen, and essentially become that number two guy behind Kawhi Leonard. And you barely ever hear his name, if ever at all. So that really has not worked out for San Antonio. Now they have to try to build again. Now they have to try to look around, and when you do look around, it's not a good look. Sure, they'll win 50 games, but the competitive imbalance in the league, which has been what the most of the major sports talk guys have been harping about, the it's an extreme competitive imbalance that you're seeing in the NBA right now. And we talked about this, I believe it was either Monday or last week, how how poor the state of the NBA is because of this. Because of the fact that the only teams that can beat the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers are each other. There is Golden State just proved there is nobody in the West that is any form of competition to them. And Cleveland honestly just mails it in for a couple games just to where they don't get bored. And when they turn it on, they're just as good as the Cavaliers. They're just as good as the Warriors. So the only two teams in the NBA that can beat each other are the only two teams that are going to end up in the finals every year. That's not good. That's really not good. During the era of Jordan's Bulls, there was always another team. There was always another team that was as good or just close enough to give the Bulls fits, whether it be in the East or the West. Detroit, definitely. Now there's no team to give Golden State fits, and there's no team to give the Cavaliers a fit. The only team giving them a fit is themselves. Nights LeBron doesn't want to play. That's the only time the Cavaliers seem to actually genuinely lose, is when LeBron doesn't want to play. You hear it from everyone that Kevin Durant's decision to go title chasing and win a championship has completely destroyed the NBA, and it truly has. To a point where the Warriors are the first team to ever go 12 and 0 going into the finals. And the first team since the 2001 Lakers to go undefeated into the finals. I don't want to hear anything about Kawhi Leonard. I really don't. Because that Kawhi Leonard injury meant nothing in the grand scheme of the series. It meant nothing. Try to fool yourself into thinking it meant something, that's fine. It meant absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of the series. Golden State was always going to win that series. San Antonio was always going to lose that series. Now Golden State is sitting and waiting on whichever one of these two teams, if Boston can pull the impossible comeback or if Cleveland just ends it tonight. Which you would have to assume that Cleveland is going to end it tonight, even with the injuries to Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving. And to anyone who thinks that LeBron has lost it, LeBron's not as good as Michael Jordan, this, that, and the other thing, you saw what he did on Tuesday night. What, he put up 35 points the other night? If I can find it here. Um, yeah, what did he put up? 35. What did he put up? 35 points. I mean, LeBron. When LeBron has to take over, he will take over. That's all there is to it. This is directly from Bleacher Report. Kyrie Irving scored a playoff high 42 points to propel Cleveland past Boston 112 to 99. They made that game a lot closer than I thought they would. LeBron James dealt with foul trouble early. Uh, Pushing Irving into the spotlight during the contest, he responded with 21 points in the third. Love added 17, 17 rebounds, and 5 assists. Uh, yeah, LeBron had 34 points on 15 for 27 shooting and 6 assists. I mean, like you say, it's everyone is allowed a bad game, and I guess except for LeBron James. Because the second he has a bad game, which everyone has and which everyone's entitled to, oh, he's not as good as Michael Jordan. He'll never be as good as Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan never had a game where he was under 15 points in a playoff game. Never once. Then when you hear he may have been playing sick in Game 3, oh well, Jordan played sick. It's one of the greatest performances in NBA history. It's like nothing for a LeBron hater, of which I am one. Nothing is good enough. You will always, always, always find a way to hate on LeBron James. But there are some games, and like I said, I'm a LeBron hater. I don't like the guy. And after watching it on ESPN 30 for 30 yesterday, just reliving the decision to go to Miami, the self-centered, self-serving, egotistical manner in which that announcement was made was enough to say, really, you really started to screw the NBA right there. But even I have to sit back and marvel as a guy who was too young to watch Michael Jordan play and too young to understand how good Michael Jordan was. YouTube is a wonderful thing for that. I was too young to watch Michael play. I am seeing the Michael Jordan of my generation, and I hate him, don't get me wrong, but there are even games where, even if you hate somebody, you got to sit there and go, God, that's one hell of a performance. Or, God, he really is a special player, a once in a generation player. And it could fall on him tonight. The burden could fall on him tonight as to whether or not the series ends in Boston in Game 5, because again, the injury to Irving and Love, I do not see them pulling as much as they were in Game 4. To the NFL the beginning of this week made some rule changes. The basic of which, overtime. I am reading this directly from the Jets website because this is the first link I saw. 6 years following the modification of sudden death overtime, the extra period has been shortened from 15 to 10 minutes. The rules should improve players' safety. To put things into perspective, there have been 83 overtime games since 2012, 22 of which have lasted more than 10 minutes. So a shorter overtime period, which honestly is fine. And when you think 83 games since in the last 5 years have gone to overtime, compare that, so now put that in with the couple hundred, probably nearly 1,000 games that have been played over the last 5 years that have not gone to overtime. It's a minuscule number. It's a very, very rare thing, and it's something that really will not have an impact. Celebrations. After discussions with players, coaches, officials, teams, and fans, the NFL is relaxing their celebration rules to, quote, allow players more room to have fun after they make big plays. Following a touchdown, using the football as a prop will be permitted, as well as celebrating on the ground and group demonstrations. Despite the new approach, the league still has a line drawn in the sand. The league's statement said, quote, offensive demonstrations, celebrations that are prolonged and delay the game, and those directed at an opponent will still be penalized. I have absolutely zero problem with that. Now, this rule change is directed to fans of my age group, fans in the ages of 18 to 30, the millennials as we've been called. This rule change has been directed towards us because people in my generation uh, apparently do not seem to find entertainment solely in the game anymore. They have to find it through those dopey games that they put on the jumbotron, the stupid gimmick stuff like the kiss cam and all that other garbage. I have never seen a problem with players celebrating if it does not go over the line. Now, the thing about the prolonged celebrations, there is no time that has been put on that. So say a celebration goes over 10 seconds, then you penalize. That's fine. Or is it a situation to where it is the official's discretion as to what is too long? Because if Odell Beckham has a touchdown celebration that lasts 7 seconds and he does get penalized, the very next week he has a touchdown celebration that lasts for 10 seconds and he doesn't, then there's an issue. That's the only possible thing that I can see wrong is what is the length of the touchdown celebration and the officials being, what's the word? I can't think of the word. Being inconsistent with that. That's the only thing I see wrong. I mean, honestly, if you spike the football, you do not deserve to get penalized and fined. For Ezekiel Elliott to get penalized for jumping into the Salvation Army bucket last Thanksgiving, that was incredibly creative. He should not have been penalized for that. And the only reason why he wasn't fined for that is because of how much publicity it brought to the league. That's the only reason why he was not fined for that. I mean, honestly, who cares if Antonio Brown twerks? I mean, that's if he wants to make himself look like an idiot on national television, that's his prerogative. Um, Goodell added the number one thing that I took away from the conversation with the players is that incredible commitment that they have to the game and the integrity of the game. They recognize that sportsmanship. Da, 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 da. Anyway, um, one cut down. Instead of having two cut days where the summer roster is trimmed prior to the fourth preseason game from 90 to 75, and then once again from 75 to 53 less than a week later, all teams have one cut down deadline from 90 to 53 following the fourth preseason game. This change is expected to prevent injuries to key reserve players as most starters do not participate in the final preseason game. This is also a way for the NFL to start to phase out the preseason games. When you do not have to make the first round of cuts, those are easy cuts. The second cuts, yeah, those are the guys that are probably going to be on the practice squad. This is the players don't want preseason games. The owners don't want preseason games. The networks do not bite on preseason games. There's a reason why there's no nationally televised preseason games that aren't on the NFL network. It's not a moneymaker. The players don't like them. The players don't want them. The owners don't want them. The league apparently doesn't want them. So this is just a way to phase them out. Injury reserve players eligible. Two players are now allowed to return from injury reserve as opposed to one. Players designated to return are eligible to practice for after 6 weeks on IR and eligible to play after 8. This allows players who suffer injuries at an earlier point in the season to come back for potentially significant games late in the season. This is something that the NFL should not have a number limit on. If I can go, I want to go. You should not have to make a choice between, say, Eli Manning and Odell Beckham are both on injury reserve. But Brandon Marshall came off of injury reserve earlier in the season, so now I have to choose between one of them. Both are going to be back for the end of the season, or both of them could be back with 5 weeks left to go in the season. So, which one? They should not have a number placed on injury reserve, period. But the fact that they opened it up from 1 to 2 shows that they're going in the right direction. So, as far as NFL rule changes go this year, you see the NFL loosening up and you see the beginning stages of them starting to phase certain parts of the game out. So, I honestly think that I've bashed the NFL rule changes the last couple of years. This one I think is a good one. This year I think they didn't mess with the game on the field as far as, oh, we're going to move the kick spot now, we're going to move the field goal spot, we're going to change the height of the post, stupid stuff like that. They didn't do any of that this year. What they did was a conscious effort to get interest in the game, loosen up the rules, and start to phase useless parts of the game out. That's what they did, and I think that's what they needed to do, and they did it very successfully, I feel. Baseball, for this evening, again, the Yankees were looking to win their series against the Kansas City Royals. They lost on Tuesday, they won yesterday. They have been postponed this evening. I'm sorry, they were looking to win the series. Pardon me. They won Monday and Wednesday. They lost Tuesday. They were looking to win the series tonight. That game has been moved to September 25th. That is between a road trip to Toronto and the Yankees' final homestand between the Rays and the Blue Jays. So that is where this game will be made up. For the Mets tonight, they go to try to win the series against the San Diego Padres, who came back last night on what has been an abysmal bullpen for the Mets. This pitching depth that the Mets have had is now, or that they thought they had going into the season, has been completely and utterly decimated. You heard about 2 weeks ago that Steven Matz and Seth Lugo were throwing extended programs, throwing mock spring training games. Where are they now? We don't know. You heard Cespedes could have been back earlier this week. What's going on with him? Nobody knows. Syndergaard is still going to be out for a while. Familia is not going to be back until about August or September when the season will be over. So he won't make a difference. Gazelman has been putrid. Montero, who's starting for the Mets tonight, has been god awful. Hansel Robles, who's been god awful, is down in the minors. Tommy Malone made himself look like a fool the other day. Ramirez has been bad. It has not been good. All of this pitching depth that the Mets had at the start of the year is now gone. And they are trying to piece together waiver players, and it's not working. It's really not working. Matt Harvey had a game on Tuesday where that was supposed to be a redemption game for Matt Harvey. The Padres are the worst, and knowing this, being out in San Diego and watching this team on a nightly basis, is the worst offensive team in baseball. And Matt Harvey struggled through 5 innings. Folks, the Dark Knight is gone. That's all there is to it. The Dark Knight is no more. The legend of Matt Harvey is just that. It is a legend now. Matt Harvey will never, after Tuesday night, you can see it in the way he's throwing. You can see it in his demeanor. You've heard after the last couple starts, hey, I feel good. I feel good. Everything's just trying to figure out what's going on, but I feel great. Well, pitch great. I understand you got the win. I understand you're now 3-3 on the season, but if you're struggling through 5 innings and 103 pitches against the San Diego Padres, there is a major issue there. A major issue. This is a team that if you were Matt Harvey, this should have been an easy go of it. Period. And with every single one of these pitchers, Syndergaard, DeGrom, Harvey, Matz, Gazelman, the lot, all going to arbitration this year, it seems likely that guys like Gazelman and Lugo and now Harvey are going to get left behind. Syndergaard's not going to get paid because of his injury this year. DeGrom will get paid. Matz will not get paid because of his injuries. Wheeler will not get paid because he does not have a big enough sample to garner a massive payday. So you're going to save a little money with the injury to Syndergaard. You're going to save a little money with the injuries to Matz. Which, by the way, speaking of injuries, Sandy Alderson, this just goes to show that this is definitely, no matter what happens, this is Terry Collins' last season as Met manager. Terry Collins has been told by Mets front office to not disclose or not discuss any injuries whatsoever. So the way the Mets are going to deal with all of the injuries that they have had this year is they're not going to talk about them. They're not going to talk about them. They're not going to let you know what's going on with them. If Walker tweaks his back, is he going to be out of the lineup today? Collins can't answer that. Why? Because it's injury related, and he's not allowed to discuss injury related topics. Which just goes to show that this is definitely Terry Collins' last season as Met manager. Period. You can see it already. If I were Collins, I'd come out in August and say, listen, I'm retiring at the end of the year. Because if you don't, the announcement's going to come down in October. The Mets have fired Terry Collins. Because that's the direction it's heading. Because of the weather tonight, Jacob deGrom was scheduled to start. But because of the weather, the Yankees have already postponed their game. So in Queens, the Mets are going to be playing tonight. They have decided to skip Jacob deGrom's start. They're going to push him to tomorrow. They're going to push him tomorrow in Pittsburgh because of the weather. So it'll be Rafael Montero going tonight for the Mets, 0-3 with an 8.1 ERA and 16 strikeouts. He will go up against Dinelson Lamet, making his major league debut. The Padres' number 10 prospect, Lamet, will make his big league debut after an impressive start to his season in Triple-A. Lamet has whiffed 50 batters in 39 innings, posting a 3.23 ERA. In 6 of his 8 starts, he's allowed 1 or fewer runs. So the Padres are hoping that this kid is going to be what they hope he's going to turn into. He will face that, and I mean, over the last couple of years, the Mets' record against kids making their debuts. It's not good. Tonight for the Padres, it'll be Alan Cordoba in left, Yangervis Solarte at second, Will Myers at first, Hunter Renfroe in right, Corey Spangenberg at third, Austin Hedges behind the plate, Matt Caesar in center, Chase Darno, the shortstop, and Denilson Lamet will be the pitcher. For the Mets tonight, it'll be Conforto, Reyes, Bruce, Walker, Duda, Flores, Granderson, Travis Darno catching, and Rafael Montero. Just before this series started, the Padres picked up Chase Darno from the Boston Red Sox on waivers. So there you go. The two brothers playing against each other tonight. Not the first time we've seen it. We did see them play a couple times against each other when Chase was with Atlanta. But other than that, tonight is one of their first times playing together in a while. Wrapping it up today. Just going back to the NFL. Just a major problem brewing in Giants camp right now, and that is the fact that Odell Beckham has not showed up. Now, I understand that OTAs are voluntary, but if you are a professional athlete and you are serious about your craft and you are serious about honing your skills and becoming the best player of all time, which is what Odell Beckham Jr. has the promise of being, he could be probably better than Jerry Rice. He's bested a lot of Jerry Rice's quickest two records. So he has that potential. When something is voluntary, it really means mandatory. If you're a star of the team, it is mandatory that you be there. It sets the tone for the year. If you are a middle player, you're fighting for a spot. You're there to fight for a starting spot. And if you're a bottom tier player, you're there fighting to stay on the roster. So this is not a good start to the season for Odell Beckham Jr. 3 days into OTAs and he's still not there, and he was expected to be there today. Not good. Very not good. Also, that and out of former Giants news at least, Victor Cruz signs a 1 year deal with the Chicago Bears. So Victor Cruz has finally found a home. So Victor Cruz has finally found a home. It will be Chicago for this upcoming season. Just 1 second as we get set to end the program today. Uh, Couple things we want to get to really quick. Uh, okay. So for today, you don't really have much as it pertains to scores. Again, the Yankees postponed tonight. Mets are going to try to squeeze their game in against the Padres. That's starting in a half hour from now. The New York Red Bulls will play the New England Revolution on Saturday, and then on ESPN on Sunday, Atlanta United FC will take on New York City FC. For racing, it is the biggest racing weekend of the year, as Memorial Day weekend always is. Formula One is running their biggest Grand Prix of the week of the calendar in Monaco, the Principality. Uh, IndyCar is running the Indianapolis 500, the 101st Indianapolis 500, which has made headlines this year because two-time Formula One World Drivers Champion, Fernando Alonso has decided to skip out on the Monaco Grand Prix to run for Andretti Autosport in the Indy 500 this year, and NASCAR is running the Coke 600, one of their biggest events, longest race of the year. Most points will be on up for grabs this week. So you do have a lot to get to this weekend. For Formula One, you had the second practice session, the second of three practice sessions run this morning. Sebastian Vettel in his Ferrari bests Daniel Ricciardo in the Red Bull by 0.487 seconds, which in Formula One is a lifetime. In the second practice session, Lewis Hamilton, who is second in the Drivers' Championship by not all that much, by 6 points behind Sebastian Vettel, coming off of his win last week, 2 weeks ago at the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, was more than a second off the pace in his Mercedes. He was eighth. The Verizon IndyCar Series, trying to find I haven't been able to find the starting lineup. That's what the dead air was for. I do know that Scott Dixon is on the pole for the Indianapolis 500. Fernando Alonso was not all that far off the pace in just his first time in an IZOD IndyCar was not that far off the pace at all. He was at one point during the second qualifying session, he was the only driver in the 231 mile an hour average time range, which is stupidly quick. But not as stupidly quick as Scott Dixon, who claimed his 26th IndyCar pole in thrilling fashion, posting a four-lap average of 232.164 miles an hour to earn the pole award. Here we go. So it'll be Scott Dixon, Ed Carpenter, Alexander Rossi on the first row. Remember the Indy 500, they start three abreast. Takuma Sato, former Formula One driver. Fernando Alonso will start fifth. Again, he's starting fifth in his first ever IndyCar qualifying attempt. First time driving in IndyCar, first time racing an oval, and he qualifies fifth. Just goes to show you how incredibly talented he is. J.R. Hildebrand will start sixth. That'll end the second row. Third row is Tony Kanaan, Marco Andretti, Will Power. Fourth row, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Ed Jones, Oriol Sylvia. Mikhail Alishin, Graham Rahal, Max Chilton will be the fifth row. Sixth row will be Charlie Kimball, James Hinchcliffe, and Juan Pablo Montoya. Sixth row, Elio Castroneves, Jay Howard, and Sage Karam. Next row, Joseph Newgarden, Simon Pagenaud, who is the points leader, and Carlos Munoz. Gabby Chavez, Connor Daly, Jack Harvey, Pipa Mann, Spencer Pigot, Buddy Lazier, I'm from Colorado, so I'd assume Lazar. Sebastian Saavedra, Zach Veach, and James Davison will round out the 33 driver field that will take place in the 101st running of the Indianapolis 500. The most recent practice times for the Coke 600, Eric Jones for Furniture Row Motorsports in his 5-hour Energy Toyota is the sets the fastest time at a 28:021. Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Matt Kenseth, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch, Jamie McMurray. The top 10, Martin Truex Jr., who led, what was it, 380 some odd laps of the 400 lap race last year, 11th fastest. Looking through the field, Kurt Busch is 14th, Danica Patrick 18th, Dale Jr. 22nd, Joey Logano 30th, and that's about it as far as big names go. So finally, after I was able to spit that out, that'll be the end of the program for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all tomorrow.